Well, greetings and salutations, and welcome back to another episode of Curry Retrospectives, right here on the Super Review Show. I am joined by my two good friends, Kyle and Mike. What's going on, guys?
Bonjour. Oh, ready to go down the spiral with you guys today.
Oh yes, we're ready to go down that very
Quite the
downward spiral. Oh yes. Oh boy. So I want to apologize for the past 2 weeks. I know we haven't done any episodes until this week because we've been so busy in our personal lives and we just couldn't do last week. So we're doing it this week. And for those of you who are just filling in and coming in now, this week's episode, we spun the wheel and we are doing, we're breaking down and discussing picks on the wheel that were on, was it Rolling Stone's top 500 albums of all time list? And this one was on there, which was 9 Inch Nails, the Downward Spiral, their second album from 1994. So the album's almost 30 years old too. So this is how it's gonna work. I'm gonna go first, then Kyle's gonna go, then Mike's gonna go, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, so 9 Inch Nails, a band that I knew was there for a long time. I just didn't really get into them heavily until like 2018, 2019. I really started listening to them along with like early Red Hot Chili Peppers stuff as well. I went through a small phase of both of them at one point. Just to try new things, just to try a new taste in music, try something new and see if I like this new sound. Because my aunt, I've said this before, I'll say it again. My aunt lives in California. She is no stranger to the music business because she's in the music business. She has seen 9 Inch Nails at least 5 times over, and she said, "Hey, the Downward Spiral is a great album, or Pretty Hate Machine's a great album. Check out these couple of albums, or The Fragile. Check out this is a great band to get into if you can." So for me going into this, I was like, all right, I kind of know who they are. I haven't listened to this album in full in probably 4, maybe 5 years, and it's been a long time coming. But I'm glad it was on the list for Rolling Stone magazine's full on of their greatest out there, whatever the list they came up with, the 500 greatest albums of all time list. But I was a really big so that's kind of my background with them. Was I knew who they were. I had always but I never knew like their sound. Because it's funny when you listen to an album. When you hear a name of a band, sometimes you get like a depiction of like, oh, what do they sound like in your own head. But when you listen to them, you really dive into it, and it's a very unique sound. It's very much so. 9 Inch Nails, suppose you don't know or live under a rock. It's they're very much industrial to my understanding. Not quite like I know like early Linkin Park was like industrial rock or like new metal to that extent, but I'm sure we're all going to get into that in a little bit. But my exposure to them was this record and the one before it, Pretty Hate Machine as well. So it was kind of a unique experience because like I said, I hadn't listened to it. When I listened to it, it was like literally 4 or 5 years ago. And now re-listening to it again, it actually, some things held up more than others, and some things didn't to my own liking. Like there was a couple tracks that are just solid that I would go back to. I would add to like a alt rock playlist no matter what, and I would go back to it in a heartbeat. So let's jump over to the track listing for a second. It was their second record, came out on March 8th, 1994, and the original release has a total of 14 songs, and it's an hour and 5 minutes long and 2 seconds. Just want to go through this track by track for a second. And then I'm going to list off my standout tracks as well. So Mr. Self-Destruct, Piggy, Heresy, March of the Pigs. Heresy, thank you. Sorry. I knew I was going to butcher something at some point. Damn it. Heresy, March of the Pigs, Closer, Ruiner, The Becoming, I Do Not Want This, The Big Man with a Gun, A Warm Place, Eraser, Reptile, I'm not sure whichever one it is. Again, I'm butchering it already. Here we go. The Downward Spiral, the title track, and Hurt. So my standout tracks here are I'm terrible with names, everyone. Forgive me if I butchered your favorite 9 Inch Nails song right now. But yes, let's just go with that. So anyways, my standout tracks for this are Mr. Self-Destruct, March of the Pigs, Closer. Believe it or not, the title track is okay. Yeah, for those who listen to us any period of time, I'm a title track guy. I've always been a title track guy. This one was like, okay, it's there, and I didn't gravitate it towards as much as much as I remember that I used to. But so this album has some really good tracks on it. Like as I said, for me personally, March of the Pigs was one. Mr. Self-Destruct was one. Closer is like, I know we try and keep the show as PG-13 as possible, but Closer to me is like musical sex. It just straight up is. And if you listen to it and if you listen to the words to it, it actually is literally pure musical sex. So that's just take it as you will, but that's pretty much that. The second half of the album got like, it was for me, it was a little bit harder to get through with tracks like, I don't know, I Do Not Want This, and Trent Reznor just screaming his head off at some points with Eraser, Reptile. But I want my one track that I've always gone back to, I've always loved it, was Hurt. Hurt is a fantastic song. I actually, truthfully, I prefer Johnny Cash's version over the Nine Inch Nails version.
Don't we all?
We all do. We all do. It's unanimous at that point. But I don't hate the Nine Inch Nails version, but it is something of a unique sounding, like a big build up to close out the record. That's truthfully, and the last like minute of it is just like ambient noise and stuff like that. And it really is truthfully industrial rock to a T. But yeah, my standard tracks are Mr. Self-Destruct, Piggy, March of the Pigs, Closer. And Closer is literally, I repeat, I will say it again. Closer is just musical sex. It really is. If you really, and I'm not kidding, if you really think about it and you really listen to the lyrics of Closer, it is the definition of like musical sex. Kid you not. I know we keep the show as PG-13 as possible, but we had to go a little X rating there for a second. Just want to shine some light really quick on a couple of tracks that I actually thought were like okay at best. Not my absolute favorite, but they were still like like good for the most part, but not like great. Tracks 7 through 10, they were really hard for me to get through at some points. There are multiple listens that actually, more that I think about, like The Becoming, I Do Not Want This, Big Man with a Gun, Warm Place. I mean, these are tracks that for whatever reason, like once we got to the middle of the record, I started to have like album fatigue a little bit more than I thought I did initially. Because remember I said I went through a Nine Inch Nails phase like about 4 or 5 years ago. And I listened to the album from start to finish a lot then. But for some reason, these couple, I don't remember being so like as fast paced, or not even fast paced, just like they didn't flow as well as I remember them so much. But so that's kind of like a weaker point of the album for me, like the second half right there. But it did pick up with towards the very end with like the downward spiral and Hurt for me personally. And Johnny Cash did that song a lot of redemption. I will say that he really did. But yeah, so I mean, and I'm not. I would go see Nine Inch Nails in concert. I mean, I'm not like, but they'd be like just a check off a bucket list for me. I don't know if I'd actually go and be like, I'm a diehard Trent Reznor. Trent Reznor too. I will say this really quick about Trent. He is a phenomenal musician, and he's actually composed like musical scores for movies and stuff too. I don't know if you guys knew that. He's actually really good.
Yeah, he's much better at that.
Yeah, he's really good at like doing like orchestral like scoring for movies and sound. He might have worked with Hans Zimmer for a movie. I forget offhand, but he is a really a musical. I want to say genius pieces. He's very unique in his style, and he really knows how to do industrial rock really well, in my opinion. But yeah, that's a little bit on Trent Reznor there for you. But I mean, overall, I mean, a solid second album by Nine Inch Nails. I mean, Trent Reznor is he again. You go back to create the creative process. He wrote and did all the tracks pretty much by himself. He's that. I mean, to me, that shows a lot of effort and time as a musician. Like he can actually. I mean, the execution may not have been great over time. Like the album is almost 30 years old as of next year. Like I said, but the tracks 7 through 10 really just dragged for me a lot. I gotta say that again, because like The Becoming, I Do Not Want This, Big Man with a Gun, these are tracks that just really started to drag over like several times listening to it over and over again. That's not to bring down the stronger songs on the record. I mean, it is front loaded a little bit in my opinion, like with tracks like Mr. Self-Destruct, Piggy, March of the Pigs, Closer, and then you end on this bombastic note with Hurt. Like the second half is a little bit like more flat than I remember it being, truthfully. But I mean, hey, this is the album we picked out, and that's what we got. I'm gonna go to my rating now, and then we're gonna jump over to Kyle really quick. But overall, I have to say, Nine Inch Nails. I would, like I said, I would go see them just to check them off, saying, "Oh, I could say that I've seen Nine Inch Nails, whatever, and see Trent Reznor, or whatever." Were all of the songs great? No. Like I said, the second half of the album really fell a lot for me. With the certain tracks I mentioned, it was not when I remember it was 4 or 5 years ago. Maybe because my musical taste or knowledge has changed a little bit. I'm not sure exactly how it, I'm not sure how musical tastes change over time, of course. But I mean, remember it, trying to bring back that almost that exact feeling I got listening to this album back then. I mean, times have changed, things are different, and I just, for some reason, it didn't hold up as much as I thought it would. So on that note, this might surprise some of you guys, but because it is still Nine Inch Nails, and Pretty Hate Machine is a great album too, but I'm actually gonna give this record a solid 7.5 out of 10. It's not the greatest thing in the world. It's not the most terrible thing, but to me, the good outweighs, excuse me, the good outweighs the bad, in my opinion. And if you're a fan of if you're a fan of Linkin Park a little bit, or if you're a fan of the industrial sound in general, and you have not heard of Nine Inch Nails, this might be a good one for you to dive into, if you so choose to. If you so choose to listen to an album that's almost 30 years old now, as of 2023. Next year turns 30. So, but yeah, 7.5 for me out of 10 for the Nine Inch Nails Downward Spiral. Not a bad record, just a record that's it's a good one to dive into if you have the patience. It's because it's a long album. Like I said, it's about an hour long. If you have time to do it, and if it's something you want to experiment and try a new sound with in general, because it's very different. Like I said, when we first started, I listened to this and Red Hot Chili Peppers, Blood Sugar Sex Magic, and this album, and Pretty Hate Machine, and Californication all at once, and I was going through different tastes and different styles and all this stuff. Listening to a lot of 90s rock at the time, like Soundgarden as well. But this was a fun revisit, and I'm glad we got to pick it off the wheel. That's my 7.5 out of 10 for me for Nine Inch Nails, The Downward Spiral. Kyle has 9 nails ready behind him. See what he has to say about Nine Inch Nails, The Downward Spiral, my friend. What do you got?
All right. So 9 Inch Nails, never liked them. Never liked them ever. Got a couple of songs here and there that I liked. Only album I'd listened to in full before this one, to be completely honest, is With Teeth.
Okay.
Which was okay. Hand That Feeds, great song, fantastic track. Select handful of songs on Pretty Hate Machine, very good. All of those put just about every song on this album to shame. Mike, I should have borrowed your shirt because I hate this thing. I'm going to start with that. I'm going to come out of the gate swinging, and I'm going to be the guy. This is their most critically acclaimed record. This sucks. Sorry to all you Nine Inch Nail fans out there. This sucked so bad to get through. It is overly bloated with nonsense. Trent Reznor, completely agree with JT. Musical genius. He's a great composer. He knows what he's doing in terms of composition, songwriting. It doesn't work for an album like this. I also just don't like industrial. So let's get off on that foot too. Industrial I find to be annoying. Generally, a lot of times it's poorly produced. I feel like back in the 90s and even into the early 2000s, there were two camps of the industrial fans, where it was, you had your Nine Inch Nails fans, and then you had your Marilyn Manson fans. I was the Marilyn Manson side, still am. But again, Trent Reznor, fantastic composer. The things he's done in terms of movies and things like that are great. And a lot of that I see on here. And I can see why, if you're a fan of that kind of stuff, you would enjoy this. But
yeah,
let's just get
little known fact just before you start. Old Town Road is actually his the main beat that in the background, like the guitar kind of part, not like the obviously the country guitar, but like the background kind of noise, instrumental is his and was actually, I don't know if it was purchased or if it was just like sampled for that song, and he got credit on that song, I believe.
He also did a lot of work on Halsey's last album. I think he produced that whole thing, which I was hoping to get more industrial sound out of that than we did end up getting. But yeah, let's just jump right into some of these songs here. I mean, right off the bat, Mr. Self-Destruct, too long. It's just noise. One of the biggest problems I have with this record is the vocals are, and maybe it's just the version I listened to, maybe it's just the 2004 deluxe reissue. I don't know. That's the one I listened to. The vocals were mixed so low in this, and like those whispered vocals throughout were so hard to hear that I had to keep, whenever there was vocals on in parts, turning my volume up, then having to turn it back down for the parts that they weren't in. Way too long of a track. Didn't like it. This is a 4. Piggy, it's a 5. Incredibly annoying repetition here. You know, I really guess nothing can stop him now. But hey, at least you could tell what's going on here. There's some kind of memorable hook. Gets weird and messy at the end with the percussion, and again, it's a 5. You know, there's at least something going on. Same thing with Heresy. There was actually a guitar riff on this one that was easy to pull out, and I was like, wow, that's cool, I guess. Again, static sound on this one annoyed the hell out of me, which is something else throughout this whole record I noticed. Sounds like white noise at parts in this track. And another thing that go throughout the record, first notice on this song, it felt like they didn't know how to finish the song, and it just abruptly ends. That drives me nuts. That's a 5. March of the Pigs, take a slight uptick here. It's a 6. It's the first song that really feels like a song on this album. Still suffers from the static noise drowning out the vocals a lot, but it's a 6. It's not bad. I wouldn't turn it off if it was on, but it's not anything great. And here's where I differ from a lot of people. Closer is just an okay track. From a songwriting perspective, it's very well written. This is a very well written, well structured song. However, having said that, it's too long. The entirety of the last minute or so doesn't need to be there. Drags on way longer than it should. The lyrics don't hold up. Let's be honest here. The lyrics are good for edgy teenagers, and that's about where it ends. Every cover I've heard of this song done by like a metal or metalcore band, it sounds much better. It works better as a heavier song with more going on. But it's not a bad song. Again, all credit to Trent. The songwriting and song structure of this is fantastic. Execution, it's an 8. Best song on the album though. So all downhill from here. JT, I kind of agree with you on this, but my downward spiral here starts at track 6. This is a 4. Ruiner. The synths are annoying. The electronic beat is boring. Guitar solo on this sounds like garbage. Then this really just continues. The Becoming is a 3. I do not want this. I sure don't. I really don't want this. Only reason it gets the high score of a 4 is because it has some kind of chorus to it. It's the most ridiculously corny chorus, but at least there's something there. Then we go to Big Man with a Gun. This is a 2. Why is this here? It serves no purpose, really. A Warm Place. Somehow this is more musical than almost anything else on this album. It's really just a slow, atmospheric vagina of a song. Eraser, 3. It's like 9-inch nails on a chalkboard. That intro sounds terrible. Actually, like hurts my ears. There's an out-of-key violin here that just bothers the hell out of me. They definitely tried something here. I'll give them that. Reptile. All right, we're back up to an actual song here. I wouldn't go back to it, but it's not bad. It's a 6.
It's Reptile. Get it right.
Oh, sorry, Reptile. The downward spiral. JT, I'm so glad you didn't say this is your favorite, because this is a straight 1. I hate this track so much, to the point where I was listening to this, and Christina was in the car, and I was like, if JT somehow says this is his favorite on the album, he's a liar, because this is awful. And then Hurt, it's a 6. It's a, again, well-written song, well done, but the Johnny Cash version is just so much better that going from that to this, it doesn't have nearly as much of an emotional impact as it could. It's drawn out too long in the original Nine Inch Nails version. Again, Nine Inch Nails to me is very similar to Bob Dylan. I feel very similar between the two in that they are Trent Reznor, Bob Dylan, great songwriters, fantastic. They know how to structure a song well. They know how to create music incredibly well. When it's their own band or artist and their own solo releases, it doesn't work for me. But every time I hear an artist cover one of their songs, it's so much better. Now, don't get me wrong, taking this album out of the equation, there's a handful of really good songs on albums like Pretty Hate Machine. Head Like a Hole is a fantastic track. There are Nine Inch Nail songs out there that are really well done and really good. This album to me does not have it. So I'll end it here and just say this is a 4.5 for me overall. I did not like this. This was a bore to get through. This sucked. I'm sorry. I got to be that guy here. I'm going to break from the critics and apparently every other fan out there. I went and looked at the reviews for this. Even today, people are still giving this like 5 out of 5. I don't see it. Maybe it's just not for me. I just don't see it. It's long, it's drawn out, and it's just sounds for the sake of sounds for half of it. So, Mike, let's see. I'm probably the villain here. Well, let's have you go at it.
Well, yeah. So it's an interesting experience when you listen to this album, and it's one of those albums that I feel like. So there's two worlds you can either approach an album, or you can mix the two together in a perfect synchronicity. It's hard to pull off melding the world of atmosphere against like just a straightforward song structure that doesn't have a ton of focus on the atmosphere side and more of a listening experience. So I feel like Nine Inch Nails definitely went towards the atmosphere side of things, and they really made it their journey, or his journey, since it was written by him solely, as kind of almost to document what it's like to go into a downward spiral, kind of in your own mind, all the things you go through, the fears and just all the agony of it all, and just kind of like follows one man's path. But I have to be honest, I actually side with Kyle here.
Mike, let's go.
This was really hard to get through, and I am shocked because I absolutely love Pretty Hate Machine. Pretty Hate Machine is a 10 across the board for me, and almost every single song on that album, maybe one is an 8, but everything else is a 10 off of that album. It is one of those albums that I could listen to at any given day and just absolutely be drawn into, even the songs that are not just your straightforward beat with like a catchy hook. Even the songs that have like atmosphere and stuff, they're still some of the most memorable songs that I know from any music, as well as Nine Inch Nails. And coming into this, I literally came from the camp of straightforward song structure with a good beat, but like some atmosphere and some other kinds of deviations off of that. And this album took a complete different turn for me. So if JT, if it's just as an illustration purpose, if you could just bring up the Pretty Hate Machines Wikipedia page where it shows the track listing and the credits to who worked on it. I just want to kind of show you what's an important process when you're writing an album. Sometimes it is very important to have somebody in the room with you who will say, hey, this might be a good idea to do this or that, or like maybe doing this is too much.
This is not a good idea.
Right. Maybe this is not a good idea, or like So now look at the producer credits. We have other names on the board. We sometimes it's not good to leave a man to his own like spiral into kind of, so like he brings a lot of passion and intensity on this album, screaming. It's like a man sitting in a, actually I believe it was recorded in a haunted house, I believe.
Yes, same with the
You have a
first
man,
Manson record.
you have a man sitting in a haunted house, and he's visiting his own mortality. He's visiting his own insanity or his own suffering. And like, whilst I, as an artist, do appreciate that and find that intensity and passion, I get lost on the cutting room floor of like where a lot of the songs, melodies and hooks and things that could have taken off were left in exchange for repeating the same beat over and over again, or repeating the same thing over and over again. And I find that to be this album's weakest point. And unfortunately, what this album did in comparison to that album is this album kind of, it took its melodies and it intensified it. This the other album, this album kind of focused on the passion and left the song structures kind of to just kind of go off on their own and do their own thing. So yeah, just to subset my kind of my delve here. So I'm just gonna list my cons. Lacks musical direction, heavily relies on atmosphere over structure, it leans on the composition that it's going for, and that kind of weakens it. At times it doesn't seem interested in creating a seamless transition from riff to like, part to part. Or it just wants to,
or even song to song for that matter.
Oh yeah, it just cuts off abruptly. It feels chaotic, and in a lot of ways I feel that was done on purpose, which makes this a great album if you want to listen to it in a car ride where you're just driving through a dark street, or you're on a long car ride and you want atmospheric music without any kind of like real I would say pulling you in with like a very specific kind of song that makes you kind of remember a lot of it and stuff. It kind of feels like it floats along. And I mean, that's not all true with the whole album, but there's a couple that do, and there's a couple that don't, grab you and take you along and make you remember the words and whatever. But there's very little of it. So starting off with the first one, it's just noisy. It doesn't showcase the songwriting. It's got a song underneath the noise. It's like listening to a construction site, and I work at Home Depot, so trust me, I feel like this first song is literally Home Depot, the record. But so Ruiner is just a 2 out of 10 for me, unfortunately. It was just a bad start. So then we go to Piggy. Piggy kind of has a very hard 90s feel to it, like that. Like it feels like that late 90s, like, like with like, you had just that kind of like Stone Temple Pilots, like with the bass kind of like and the kind of like laid back feel to it. And I mean, Billie Eilish, eat your heart out. Mr. Trent Reznor was whispering before you were even out of the womb. So like, I mean, now Billie Eilish is actually putting out decent music from what I've heard. That might be a hot take, but I've actually heard some of her new music and I actually really like it a lot. You won't hear too many like hard critics say that, but it's actually not bad. But that's for another review. Might be the next one we do. Who knows? So it just, Piggy's just kind of there. It's okay. Nothing really takes you and grabs you. At some point, it sounds like there's 2 songs being played at the same time. Once again, the artistic stuff can overlap and almost drown out some of the like just pure like fun of this album. It's like, yeah, this would be really artistic if I just play 2 drum patterns at the same time while you're listening to a song. It's like cool, but like also not cool because I'm like getting lost here. So like 4 out of 10 for that
stop
one.
Him.
Yeah.
Cannot stop him.
Well, yeah, you can't stop it. I mean, You're absolutely correct. So and there's this little sad melody at the end of Piggy. I think that was kind of cool. I wish it was actually implemented throughout the song and maybe even used, but alas, it wasn't. So then we go to Heresy. I hate these lyrics. I really do. And as many of you know, I'm a Christian. I don't like the anti-God kind of uh stuff going on in this song, but at the same time, like, it is what it is. I'm not gonna like, hey, you gotta not speak your mind. He's gonna speak his mind. It is what it is, but it feels very like, just childish, like, like, or just cliche, I should say, more than childish. Yeah, but basically, this is what kind of more this is leaning towards more like Nine Inch Nails sounding stuff. But there's a little bit groovy, simple guitar. Kyle talked about that. It was cool. Like, that's nice. I wish they did more with it instead of just playing the same riff over and over and over again. And it's like you have an opportunity to do something, just like, and it's got the noise again at the end. So it was a 4 out of 10 for me. Kind of on the same realm as Piggy in the sense of like, where I'm just not really enjoying the music as much, but I'm just appreciating elements of it. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I don't enjoy the song, but I say, hey, I like these elements. When if I were listening to this on a car ride, it would create an element or an atmosphere that might benefit me in that area. But if I were to listen to this when I needed something to be like, grabbing my attention, it'd be rough. So then we go on to March of the Pigs, 5 out of 10, chaotic, noisy, but a little more musicality involved in this. Interesting piano breaks. It was a 5 out of 10 for me. And then we get to Closer. I mean, it's a classic. Always creep me out. 9 out of 10 for me. Not a perfect song. It does drag on in some parts. I agree with Kyle in that realm. But I do really like the ending coming in all. But one thing I love about this song is it layers. It starts with this part, and then it adds this little cymbal beat over, and then it adds this part to it, and then it adds this part, and it just kind of like layers it throughout the song, and at the end just all comes together with a big, like, showing Trent Reznor's true genius in building a song almost like he's building a monster, like Frankenstein. I put this here, put that there, layer all the pieces together. Then we kind of come into Ruiner. I actually disagree with Kyle here. Ruiner was actually one of the few songs that I felt reminded me of Pretty Hate Machine, with that kind of beat in the intro. It's got some cool noise sound effects in the background. I love that little doo 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 doo. I love that. That sound in the background is like music to my soul for like the distant feeling of being lost out there. That it just feels like you're in this weird, strange kind of alien world. Like that's just me and my creepy mind, but it gave me something to go off. It had melody to it alongside of a beat, alongside some chaos. It had diversity and dynamics. Like, it was like, here's a little bit of this, here's a little of that, and it's not all one thing. And that's what makes this song a better offering than some of the previous songs, where it's just like all noise at the beginning, or it's all this or that. So yeah, and I like a little bit of classic rock riff again they threw in there. The chaotic sound actually works for this. Give it a 7 out of 10. So that was actually pretty decent. And then this is where, once again, I agree with the boys here. It takes a big dump, So the becoming is just, it is what it is. I'm just becoming annoyed is what I am. And I'm just like, please, God, like, why is this getting like this? Like, it's just repetitive. It feels like when I made music on a loop program in high school, and I just ran out of ideas. So I just like played the same loop, and I don't know,
layered random things on top of it.
Right. Did some impromptu screams into a mic. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I do not want this. Once again, I agree. I do not want this. And it's just a continuous beat without real direction vocally. Don't tell me how I feel. It's such a cringe thing, yelling it like when I was 14 years old and I didn't want to eat dinner or something.
Don't tell me
just
what
like,
to do, Mom.
Yeah, dummy. Straight. It's just strange lyrically too at times. you know, like he's saying I don't have sex with the whole world. Like, cool, bro. Well, make sure you wear a condom. But anyway, yeah, big man with a gun feels incomplete, and it just feels like he was in a room, like I said, in this haunted house. He's got him sitting there, and no one's telling him, "Hey, Trent, maybe we should not do that." He's just like, "No, screw it, bro. I'm Trent Reznor. I'm going to do it." Like, cool, congrats, but not something I feel like helps this album. 2 out of 10. Then we have A Warm Place. Actually, I agree with Kyle here. It's actually a nice, mellow instrumental. Reminds me of Donkey Kong Country, weirdly enough, like video game music. Good meditation song.
Mhm.
6 out of 10. Like nothing. It needed something to like push it over into the stratosphere, but it did what it did well without like all of a sudden like a construction site coming out of nowhere
Which
and
is
just like
exactly why he's a good composer for movies and stuff. Like,
yeah,
it works very well for something like that, not for this kind of album.
right, exactly, yeah. And then we have Eraser, Reptile, and the Downward Spiral are just they're just like not good. Like they create good atmosphere. Eraser's got some atmosphere to it. It's got it just doesn't lead to anything. It doesn't have it's not consistent. Consistency is something I feel like really hurts this album, and that's where I sit with that. I hate to be that guy, as all those fans out there that love 9 Inch Nails, don't take this as like a strike as I'm trying to like be aggressive towards the band. I absolutely love that they've always stood about like not selling out and not being like being like different and being okay with that, and they've built a fan base in that realm, and I 100% agree. But it's just like the Pretty Hate Machine was just it was just on a whole nother level. This was more the intensity and passion. Pretty Hate Machine was more like the songwriting, the beat, the atmospheric keyboards alongside that structure, whereas this was just the passion and like the art. This was the art, and I love art, but I also feel like the two worlds have to unite and develop something and present something that can still keep you interested, and that's where this suffers. And Downward Spiral, it is what it is. It goes for art. It sounds like crap on purpose, and when you start doing things on purpose, like, hey, I'm gonna play like the next minute, but I'm gonna muffle it on purpose, and then I'm gonna like do that. Like that's like black metal. Black metal would play things on purpose, in a bad way, because it was like their message to the world. Like, we don't want to appear like overly polished and like we've sold out and all we care about is like not the rawness. This was trying to do raw, and it just fell on its face. 2 out of 10. So I was a 4. Eraser was a 4. So then we come down to Hurt. I mean, this is a classic song. Once again, Johnny Cash 100 times better than this song. I mean, he Trent, he built the foundation, and Johnny Cash laid the walls and the roof on it. It really accentuates the song. It adds the dynamic of his voice and the musical additions to the guitar and the stuff, whereas this is all one thing. It's very quiet. It's very just on the darker side and the more kind of atmospheric side. So I would say it was still it's a good skeleton to put the meat on, when you have someone cover it. So it's a 7.5 out of 10. So yeah, this was, unfortunately, I'm curious like what the next album went for, but which will be an interesting thing to do. But for me, there wasn't too much to chew on here. There was just a cut, like atmospherically, it would be great to listen to while I'm just driving and not paying attention directly to it. That sounds terrible, but yeah, overall, and Kyle, I hate to be the copycat, but you literally nailed it on the head, bro. 4.5 out of 10 is what I gave it. And I was like thinking while you were saying, I was like, shoot, should I change it to 4 and like be the villain here because I do deduct a point at the end. As everybody knows, I have a long-standing tradition to deduct either a half point up or a half point down based on the entire thing's what it achieved, and actually, because it's a piece of art, and it has lots of experimental things on it, I feel like that allows it to sit at its current rating rather than add a point or deduct a point. I would deduct a point, but because it's a more art-faced project, I would say 4.5 is where I'm sitting, bro. So we have a dead tie for the villain. So
Has this ever happened before? Have we ever given an album the same score?
I don't know.
I don't think we have.
That's wild, bro.
Wow.
That's wild. And yeah,
The fact that you both gave each other the same exact score, kudos.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's like fans out there who are just like ready to just murder us. I mean, the 3 people that listen to this, they're like,
we actually have a lot more than you think.
I know. I like to I like to say the 3 people that way. Those, like, how many people listening will be like, no, it's more than 3, and then I'll be like, sweet. I made them erupt into a defense of us. If you get your fans to defend you, then you don't have to worry about defending yourself ever again. So only the
some 9 Inch Nails fans here.
Yeah. The only 3 people that prove me wrong, folks. Prove me wrong. The 3 people that watch this, prove me wrong that it's just 3 by commenting in the bottom of this video and saying how much you hate me for being the bad guy. But maybe you love me. Who knows?
If you're looking for Mike's address, Mike's address.
Whoa, go, Mr. Mahoney. Let's go ahead and let's not do that, man. Let's not do that. I'm good.
Nah, I'm just kidding, bro. I wouldn't do that.
If you want to work between the hours of,
yeah, right, exactly. Yeah,
Mike will be working at his job.
Yeah,
wherever
he works, whatever. I don't know.
But yeah, Mike, I completely agree with you. If you look at it in terms of an art piece, it works.
Yeah.
But in terms of a listenable album, it really does not hold up. I was actually excited to listen to this one, and when I got like 3 songs in, I was like, oh, this is not what I wanted it to be.
Yeah. And it's when you listen to the Pretty Hate Machine, like, it's like, oh my God, it's like leagues different. It's just a whole nother, approach. And like I said,
listenable music.
Yeah, and you look at the credits and you see other people there, and I do agree. I don't care how artistic you are, how isolated you are, always have someone say, hey, you don't have to do what I say, but I have these ideas and you should maybe try that out. And then if you don't like it, don't do it. But at least have a voice there saying, like, hey, like, let's try something a little bit different here.
Well, I think that's a common trend, especially in today's, artists, is the lack of producers. Like, everyone now, with how much easier it is to produce music and how much more widely available things are,
right?
People tend to self-produce their stuff. But when you do that, you're lacking that other person in the room to tell you, like, hey, you have good ideas, but let's focus in more on that and refine it. Or, hey, that's not a good idea. Let's cut that out and do something different.
All right. Yep. That's it, man.
Is that everything?
That's all we got, and we just got to spin the old wheel of.
Yes, we can spin the wheel now. Hold on one second. There you go. Now we are spinning the wheel to figure out our next pick for next time. What do we have next? We have
finally be a Kyle pick. Let's see.
I hope so.
Most likely not. The way my luck is.
It might be.
Nope.
Oh shoot! It's
Radiohead. Radiohead.
Okay, computer.
Radiohead's Okay Computer is next for us.
Kyle, poor Kyle.
Well, there you have it, folks.
Kick Kyle
next week or the next time we do our podcast is going to be on Radiohead's OK Computer from 1997.
Oh, you mean Weezer's OK Human from 2020?
No, Kyle. No. We're doing Radiohead now.
No, but that will do it for us. Thanks so much for watching, listening, have enjoyed us. Thanks so much for tuning in as always. There were more people actually live, believe it or not, Mike. There was actually a total of 5 people watching us. 5. Yeah, 5. You heard that right.
How many of them were angry at the 9 Inch Nails hate?
None of them at the moment. I've been keeping track at home right now. So, but yeah, we want to thank you all for watching, listening, however you enjoy us. Hey, this guy down here, he's got a podcast as well. I'm not sure if it's back or not yet. You're gonna fill us in or not, but Q&A podcast, check them out.
End of the month or early September. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get them.
Wherever you get your podcast, the Q&A podcast will deliver for you. Now, I want to thank, of course, Mike and Kyle. Their insight and knowledge is unparalleled to everything in the world of music. Thank you so much. And if you like what you've heard here and seen here, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on our podcast format as well. Spotify podcast, Apple Podcasts, wherever you got them. And don't forget to follow us on our social media platform, simply on Facebook and Instagram and X or Twitter. I don't even know what it's called anymore. We're just going to call it.
We're just going to call it Twitter.
We're going to call it Twitter. Simply at the Super Review Show. Thanks so much for watching, listening. We'll see you guys next week for OK Computer with my Radiohead. Stay safe, take care, and